session, I'm going to talk about the basic time series data using R. First of all, what do we really mean by a time series analysis? Right? So when we talk about a time series analysis, we are talking about analysis of a specific data that we have collected over time. When I say over time, we have collected weekly data, we have collected daily data, or we have collected some monthly data. So this kind of a data that we have collected over time, we are doing some kind of analysis on the top of it, which also means the adjacent values. So the data of yesterday versus today, or last week's data and this week's data, there is a good chance that there is some level of dependency between these two data values. So that is what is the speciality of the time series analysis. The data that we are collecting in a sequential fashion has some level of dependency with each other, with the previous data. Current data has some level of dependency with the previous data. And that understanding of the dependency is what is handled through any time series analysis. So there are some different kinds of techniques for handling this kind of a data for different business problems. So in this specific session, I am going to look at storing, very basic aspects, storing and processing time series data in R. So here I am assuming some basic understanding of R, some basic data types. So a very basic understanding of R is already present with you. So we are only talking about storing and processing of the data in R. So what are the different kinds of classes in which I can really store the time series data? I can store them as vectors. Time series data, I can store them in a vector form, or I can store them as matrices, assuming you know the data types that are present in R. I can store them as a matrix, or I can very well store them as a data frame. And there is a specific time series object as a part of the base R package called TS. So you can store the data in any of these data types. But the scope with these different data types offered to us are very, very narrow. And the kind of methods that you can really perform with respect to time series on these data types is very, very limited. So exclusively for time series, we have some specific methods or some specific packages that are available, which I think if we can install them, that is what will create a lot of comfort for us in handling time series calculations in R. So for that I suggest a package called ZOO, ZOO. So we can install this package, or there is XTS, which is again another time series related package, or we also have something called time series. So different kinds of packages are there which can handle a lot of time series specific data, right? And even the objects are of these types. So in the package called ZOO, we find objects of the type zoo. So we'll work with zoo, one of the most popular kind of a package. So we'll take some examples. We'll try to work with zoo package to try to understand the basic holding of the time series data, right? So if I have to really perform some specific sophisticated time series analysis, see, just to find out a mean, median, variance, standard deviations, I can store my data in any of these forms. But if I have to do a sophisticated time series analysis, for example, I want to do some kind of seasonal decomposition of the data. I want to break the data into seasonal components. Then, keeping my data as a vector or a matrix or a data frame will not give me any kind of a solution for this problem. But if I store my data as a type zoo, I can very well perform seasonal decomposition on the data quite comfortably. So this is where I will definitely have the need for a time series object. So let's try to use this zoo object in R and try to work out the basic time series data storage and retrievals, right? So one of the most widely used packages. So let's go ahead and install that particular package. Let me open R on my system. Okay. Once R is open, you can install. I think these packages might have already been there on my system, but otherwise I can say, okay, you install the package. You really need to select the location. So I'm selecting India. Right, I'm not installing these packages, might be there as a part of my system, but yes, let me try. If it is already there, anyhow it will give me that it is not installing. So there is a package called zoo. All right, okay, okay, the package zoo is successfully installed. So now we are loading this package using library command, library zoo. Yes, okay, the package is on. Now what I'll do is, we'll take one data file example. Let me see. I have a data file, right? Let me take Sensex data file. Look at this data file simply. Yeah, here it is. It's a daily Sensex data. Right from Jan 3rd, 2000 till 31st December 2015. Almost 16 years of data is there. Right? So daily data. So we have a date column, we have, probably let me call this as Sensex. We have a column called okay, let me save it. So these are the only two columns that are present in this particular data. Now what I want to do, I want to get this data into R. It is there in CSV format. I want to get this into R. So if you clearly look at this, daily values of the Sensex. So each line on this sheet consists of a date and the closing value, and in the first line we have the heading, and the date is DD/MM/YYYY. So this is the kind of format in